you never you never can tell with people and the way they're going to respond. But so I've got a question that I wanted to ask, and pertains to Facebook versus Google.
Mhm.
Because I heard you guys on the show with Andrew and talking about Facebook. Is Facebook in the lawn care industry? Is it really a viable marketing channel? Or
Yeah,
is Google really the channel you need to be on, or the median you need to be on for when it comes to spending advertising dollars?
yeah. I mean, the short answer is yeah. I mean, it's viable because I mentioned on that on Andrew's podcast that like at every 10 leads you get from Facebook, you will probably sell two of them, and then out of every 10 leads you get on Google, you probably sell eight of them. It's also important to remember that leads on Facebook are a lot cheaper than on Google if you can do it right. And so 10 leads on Facebook might cost you $100, whereas 10 leads on Google might cost you $500. So we always say like it's a very viable. I mean, having a billboard is a viable marketing strategy. It's just at what stage in your business is that viable for you? So when you're smaller, as I was explaining this concept to somebody else the other day, but when you're smaller, you want to start the lower part of the funnel. So you want to target people who are ready to buy. And those people are the ones who are already looking for you or a company that provides services that you offer. And those people just happen to be on Google looking for a lawn care company. So if you can, if you had, $200 a month, $200 to $500 a month, I would put it all into Google, 100% of it. And if you're doing your own Google advertising, one, I would recommend taking Google's free ad course and just learn how to use that, run the ads there, or opting in for like the local service ads, which are often referred to as Google guaranteed ads, because they're a pay per lead basis, which means Google's not going to charge you unless you actually get a phone call from that lead, and it's like recorded for X amount of seconds or something. Um, but having said that, like for our clients, some people come to us and say, "Hey, we want to do Facebook ads," and then we say, "Hold on, back up a second. What are we spending in Google ads?" And we get to a point of just kind of maxing out their Google ad spend first, and then moving, just like inching up the funnel. Now we're going to go to Facebook. So people who might be in market but not ready to buy. And I explained to him, like especially with landscaping, no one's scrolling on Facebook and then just sees an ad and says maybe I should spend $10,000.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
and lawn care is the same way. Like if you've never paid for a lawn care service, you've no idea what to expect. You might expect, so if no one's ever paid for it, they might expect $20 a mow, and that's not a thing, except unless you're paying the neighbor kid. So when people quote them, yeah, it's $60 a week, and then people start doing math in their head, like there's 4 weeks in a month. That's $240 a month, and they're like, no way. So those are the kind of leads you kind of get from Facebook, whereas people who are actually searching for this service on Google tend to have already an idea of what it's going to cost. So that's why the close rate on Facebook might be a lot lower, but it's still a viable marketing channel. And the same thing goes like once you start maxing out your Facebook ad budget and you get into the $1 million plus revenue business model, that's when you can start like focusing on just branding and just putting a billboard up somewhere and just getting that brand recognition in there. But I never suggest starting at branding and then moving down the funnel. Start at the bottom and then work your way up. It's way higher ROI.
I compare those two channels like a grocery store. So Google are the aisles,
Mm.
and Facebook is where the gum is. That you're checking out, you see that and go, you know what? Maybe I need that pack of gum.
Google is the milk in the back of the grocery store.
Right. I mean that's how I compare it to. I mean, as I sit here and think about, and I think I've discussed this with you guys before, about how can I create more awareness for what I'm doing is, well, I think we'll just put it on Facebook. It's cheap. You're probably not going to sign up anybody, but it's just, you're bringing awareness to it. Like, oh, here's this pack of gum.
Yeah. Organically, yeah, like Facebook, obviously it's cheap, it's free, sure. But we didn't get to talk about this in Andrew's podcast because we ran over time. But one of the things that I always see online and in Facebook groups are other lawn care guys asking for likes on their Facebook page and then just kind of trading likes. We talked about trading reviews,
Right.
which is obviously no, you should not do that. But trading likes to inflate kind of the people who follow you for some arbitrary reason, um, is actually it's going to hurt you in the long run because, like what you're saying, if you post on Facebook like something about your landscaping and lawn care business or whatever you do, the only people that are going to see that are other landscaping and lawn care businesses across the country that you can't serve. So if you inflate your numbers, your entire audience becomes a worthless one. And if you don't try to grow your actual followers on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or in market people, what's the point? And there's a lot of there are some marketers out there who say that I've seen this before, and Cody will probably be like, "What?" There's a lot of marketers out there who say that every person that calls you or fills out a form has checked out your social profiles. Like I've heard other
No,
marketers say that it's not true.
that's just not true.
uh, and we usually do this by like going through the uh, we look at the multi-funnel attribution report in Google Analytics. And it'll tell you if someone visited your site from social or visited your site from search engines or visited your site from whatever. Social's never on there. Like, especially when we're doing SEO and Google ads, and if we're not running social ads, organic social is never part of the attribution funnel.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit of self-bias too, right? Because we're feeding it what is it? It's basically like what's the word? Survivorship bias. We see what we see that works because we do it a particular way. And then like, yeah, we're not seeing it because what we do is working well without doing that. So there's, I mean, I I rarely get the chance to talk about this at this level of depth because usually people aren't mentally in a place to understand it this way. And I say this about other marketers too, because I've had lots of talks with other marketers who don't even like they can't wrap their head around this concept either. But Jake was saying it earlier, and I'll take it a little bit further. When you're talking about advertising in general, you first the first thing you always think is how do I get the cheapest acquisition with the best leads, right? That's the goal. I want the best inquiries and I want to pay the least for them. Um, Now, there is, of course, the bottom of the funnel, which is to us Google, right? Which is people are searching. They're looking exactly for what they want. They tell you exactly what they want, and then you just show up. Very simple, very straightforward. Um, Whatever your advertising method is, it depends on how sophisticated and competitive. When I say sophisticated, I mean like developed, how long it's been around, how much time it's had to gain um, cost ultimately, right? How much does it cost? Because the longer it's been around, especially with digital, um, costs start to increase. It gets more popular, and to advertise there, it just costs more money. So you have to do a combination of, well, are people there? Or is the cost per lead reasonable? Can I advertise there? Is pretty simple, straightforward, that sort of thing. With um, how competitive is it to the point that it's driving up the cost per lead? So this doesn't really happen as much, in the green industry, but I've known other industries where they say at the end of the day, Google isn't uh, cost competitive for us anymore. And it's because those industries have gotten so hardcore that when they try to use it as an acquisition channel to get leads, they're like, I'm paying lawyers are a good example. That's the perfect one because they'll pay $100 for a click. Like, how am I supposed to compete here? I can't. I have to go to Facebook. I have to go somewhere else, even if it is further up the funnel,
It's not an
because
exaggeration either. It's literally $100 a click for a defense
yeah,
attorney.
The way, everybody, Chris with my service area, we're talking with Jake and Cody from Evergrow Marketing. These guys are in the green industry, if you haven't put two and two together yet. So another good conversation, and hopefully helpful conversation for you lawn care guys out there and gals.
For what it's worth, I don't want to like scare the listeners or watchers away, because in the landscaping and lawn care industry, I think the average CPC, as we refer to it, cost per click, is like between $5 and $10. Probably lower than that too, depending on what your impression share is. So you're how much you're spending basically. But like I just looked at the can cleaning keywords, and insanely low. It's like your top of page bid for the high range is like $4 for a click. But I like the keyword trash can cleaning, like literally that keyword, top of page bid $2.74. Yeah. So I mean, just by industry, like that's how much it can change. So, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we do landscaping and lawn care. One, because it's affordable for businesses who are just starting out. And then, you know, we've got a bigger pool of people we can serve. Whereas if we went to lawyers, it's a lot.
Hey, do you guys want to take on some trash can cleaning clients?
Every time we go into a new industry, we always talk with someone and like learn the business model. And we're like, okay, does it make sense for you to pay us to market for you? And we just talked to an appliance repair guy a couple of days ago, and I think he was expecting, he was expecting like $10 cost per click, and we had no idea why it was so competitive. But like for appliance repair, like the average was like, it looked like it was like $10 a click. But then he goes, every 4 calls I should be getting, or every 4 clicks I should be getting a call, which is a 25% conversion rate. And we're like, based on the ad account that we're looking at, there's only like a 2.5% conversion rate in here. So, and then we asked him more about his services and his margins and things like that. And so we're getting an idea of, okay, how many leads do we need to provide you for you to make money using us? And in our brains, it just didn't work. So like we told him, we're like, hey, if you like, we're not used to this industry, and if you're saying other marketers other appliance repair marketing companies are getting these numbers for you, go with them, because if you go with us, it's going to take us a while to figure this out, because based off of what we're seeing, we're not seeing the results that you want are possible. And also to make sure that you're profitable. That's one of the things I love about the landscaping and lawn care business, is because if you gave us $100 and we could guarantee you a sale, you would just be floating money to us like crazy. And like, that's the whole proposition, is like, okay, well then that's our goal. Our target cost per lead is $50 to $75. And we're getting that for you. Dump as much money into this as you can, because as soon as that starts going up to like 200, okay, let's back up. But if we can't even establish a realistic number for an industry like appliance repair, like or this particular business model, then we're not going to entertain it, because we're not here to take money. We're here to help people succeed. And if we don't do that, it just makes us look bad. So rather just not do it than do it and fail.
Which I love about you guys. Sitting here listening to you explain that, the only, and this is just my thought process, I could be completely wrong since I just made up or got the click thing wrong. Pricing. The only way that I think that you could work with a bin cleaner is if they focused on the one-time cleanings in hope to transition them to a monthly or quarterly customer.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because the sales price, for a one-time cleaning can start at $50 and go up from there. I would say that's probably the average. And so if you're spending, $2, $5, $10 to get that $50, that makes sense.
Is it like the lawn care industry? They don't do the one-time mows, and if they do, it's like $200 to $300.
Right.
Like they price themselves out, so it makes it worth it. So every lead we get, if they've got a 50% conversion rate or 50% close rate, which is industry standard, then we know that if we provide 2 leads, we made them 1 sale. And It's a little different. If you do Facebook, it's a little different because we've had clients report to us that the close rate on Facebook ads is a lot lower. It's like 20%. But
I'm surprised it's that high.
I mean, they knew how to sell, I guess. But I lost my train of thought for a second. But it's oh yeah, okay, I know where I'm at. Okay, I do that sometimes. Yeah, for like we know that like that's just going to be reoccurring revenue for the client. Whereas like the bin cleaning business, it's like you've got to layer in an extra factor. So this guy I was talking to the other day, when he was asking me, he just did a mailer campaign, and he goes, "What's a good cost per lead for this mailing campaign?" And I was like, "What's your target cost per acquisition?" And which is a very important number for you to know if you're a business owner, which is how much are you willing to pay for a lead? And there's a formula for it. And all it really is what's the average lifetime value of your customer? So there's a formula for that. It's how much money is a customer going to give you in 1 year, and then multiply that by the average lifespan of that customer. So in the lawn care industry, it's about 4 to 5 years. And if you do a maintenance plan, and let's just say it's $500 for a year for easy math, it could be less, it could be more. Hopefully it's not less. And they're on for 5 years, that means that that customer is going to give you basically $2,500 over the course of their lifetime. So that's the lifetime value of that. And this doesn't factor in referrals too. So like if that customer refers other people, like that adds the lifetime value. This is just a very basic number. So then take that and multiply that by your average or by your net profit amount. So how much money is left for profit at the end of the day. And if you follow the profit first mentality, this should be a percentage. Like you should already know this percentage. And so if we just assume that it's 10%, your net profit. So taking us back to business school here, gross profit is only after your materials, and then net profit would be after your payroll and other expenses and things like that. So how much money goes home to you? So if we take that and we multiply it by 10%, we're left with $250. That's how much profit the lifetime of that client will give you. Then, so $250 is basically your break-even point. If you do a marketing campaign and the amount of leads that you receive or the amount of sales that you closed divided by the amount you spent on that campaign, if it equals $250, you broke even. If it's more than that, then you lost money. In theory, because these people could still refer people and you can upsell them and things like that. But I'm not going to hand money to you if I'm just going to break even every time. So what I usually do with that is I divide that by 2 because I want to make some profit. So now I'm making a 5% profit. So basically $125 per sale. Now, remember, we still have leads and close rates. So $125 per sale is what I'm willing to spend if you could give me a lead that was going to sell 100% of the time for me to make a 5% profit. But we know that's not the case. We know that the case is the average close rate is 50%. So if you multiply that by 50%, $62.50. That is what I'm willing to pay for a lead, knowing my close rate. So if you spend $1,000 and you get 15 leads from whatever source you get, your cost or your cost per acquisition there is $66.66 a lead. It's right around that 62.5. So I would say this is a successful campaign. I still made profit. There's still going to be referrals. I'm still going to upsell, and that's that. So with the lawn care industry, generally people are willing to spend $100 for a lead because there's not just the mowing maintenance, there's also the aeration and the fertilization and things like that. And so clients who know their numbers like that, it's a nice breath of fresh air for us, because we just say, oh, well, this is easy. Okay, so your target cost per acquisition is $100, and that's the number we got to beat. Whereas with the can cleaning business, I don't know why that was so difficult for me.
Well, let me pause you right there, though. Anybody in the lawn care world, stop, rewind this, and listen to that, and take note of what Jake just shared about the numbers that you need to be aware of and watching. So if you have conversations with a company like Evergrow or whoever it may be, hopefully it is, because these guys are awesome. You have that information, which makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah. It helps you audit whatever marketing campaign you did. I mean, if you did a mailing campaign, which we don't do mail, but if you did a mailing campaign and it doesn't jive with your target cost per acquisition, maybe don't do it again. But like with the can cleaning business, for instance, or other industries we go into, that's really the root of the numbers that we're trying to solve for. So if we can look at your average cost per clicks and your after we kind of do a lifetime value assessment of an average, routine monthly customer, based on your cost per clicks, do we think that we can beat or we can get you the leads at the budget you need in order to meet your target cost per acquisition? And so can cleaning business, I would ask them, like, your cost per clicks are half the price that we're paying for landscaping leads or lawn care leads. So in my mind, in theory, if we can get leads in the spring for our landscaping and lawn care clients at $30 a lead because there's so high volume, in theory, we could get leads for the can cleaning business at $10 a lead in the summer at your peak volume. And just based off of the average CPCs that I'm seeing. So just the thought, I know I'm talking forever, but just the thought process that kind of goes behind how we determine whether we're going to have success with you in a different industry versus how you should determine success when you give someone your money for a marketing campaign.
I mean, I think this is all incredibly valuable, because most people, and I'm guilty of this myself with past ventures. You go and talk to a marketing agency and it just, talking, you're not prepared for anything, right? But having you kind of spell everything out from A to Z is extremely important to, people that are watching this or listening to this, to understand they need to have some things in order first for them to be successful. Things have to fit your criteria for you to make them successful. And so having that laid out like you just did is extremely valuable. And so thank you for doing that. I mean, we haven't even, we've shared your name, but we haven't even, people don't even know who the heck they're, listening to right now, except for Evergrow Marketing. Why don't you guys take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself, a little bit of background.
I always do this part, so I'm gonna make Cody do this part now.
No, don't do that.
Every podcast we're on, I'm always the one that does it.
Now nobody wants this. Nobody wants this.
I want this.
Because I always tell people too, when I'm on anything, any sort of outreach thing, on a phone call and stuff, I always say, hey, I'm the Wizard of Oz. I'm the guy behind the curtain. I don't, not to say I'm the main guy, because Jake is the CEO, right? Like Jake is the guy. But we are 50-50 partners, and I like to be the guy in the background as much as possible. So when people want me to talk, I'm like, Jake's better at this. He's the guy who's better at talking. But
I need to give my cotton mouth a rest.
Yeah. I'm Cody, Cody C. I call myself director of operations. But Jake and I, we are 50-50 partners at Evergrow. My expertise is more in ads management. And I spent many years doing Google ads specifically. But also I have experience pretty much any word you can throw out there about digital marketing. I've done it at this point. Local SEO specifically. I've done some affiliate SEO, email marketing, etc. Right. I mean, at this point, I've pretty much done it all. And I'm trying to think of things that Jake says, because they always sound really good when I'm listening to them. We specialize primarily in landscaping and lawn care. We can do local lead generation just in general. That's what we have experience with. Jake and I met at an automotive advertising agency. So, and they actually had a green branch that Jake was like the guy for. So it was implement dealers and that sort of thing.
Like John Deere dealerships and things like that. So yep. you think automotive, it was the core agency. They dealt with like automotive dealers. I dealt with dealers that sold tractors.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, I mean, we've both been involved in local lead generation across a whole bunch of different industries. Jake was at a industrial scale company. Is that the word? Did I use
Yeah,
phrase right?
they distributed and I quoted and priced out scales like industrial manufacturing process solution systems. So that incorporated scales and weighing devices for manufacturers and even like laboratories.
Yep. And then so before going all in with Evergrow, I was at between two different agencies about, I want to say 7 or 8 years. And yeah, I mean, finance, so banks, credit unions, dentists. And really, you can check out our website. We've got a long list of everything that we've done at this point. So, but yeah, we zoned in on landscaping and lawn care, especially, and that's where we've kind of found a sweet spot. And we build websites. We make people show up on Google. We get them leads. That's pretty much it. Jake, how did I do? Was it good?
You did good. A for effort. I started Evergrow, the concept of Evergrow in 2017 when I moved down to Kansas City, when I just saw kind of a gap in the market. And then I did my own thing for about a year and a half. And then Cody and I decided to partner up at 2019 because my ad skills were lacking. But Cody, I knew was whiz because him and I worked together specifically on the agriculture side at our old agency. He was my go-to ad guy. So then we partnered up, and then literally like January 2019, it just like Evergrow went gangbusters because like we were featured in, I was featured in Turf Magazine twice, Green Industry Pros Magazine, Lawn and Landscape. I was on a podcast, and then yeah, we just kind of blew up from there, and we've been doing this ever since. So we always say like 2019 is our unofficial start date, and so this is our 4th year in business now. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. The one thing, you know, with trying to get MSA out there, my service area out there, meeting people like you is what makes, you know, being an entrepreneur fun, I guess, some days.
Yeah.
Other days, I mean, you guys know it's a grind. It's nothing, there's nothing easy about being an entrepreneur, but getting in the lawn care world, I have met some fantastic people, and you guys included when I say that. I think what you guys are doing is great. It's very helpful. I love your approach to working with people, and more importantly, I mean, you guys are just honest. Hey, if you can't work with them, if you can't make them, you know, $1, then you know you're going to tell them that. And I know that you guys give away a lot of free information on your website too.
Yeah, and it's not that like the diet free information where it's like you should do this, but then like not explain how to do it. Like it goes in depth. Like it's like a how-to guide. Just follow the steps, and like you can optimize your own website. And that stuff's always kind of annoyed me when it's just like, here's our free lead magnet guide, or like here's how to get leads, but then run a Facebook ad, but then it doesn't tell you how to optimize the Facebook ad.
But like I call it diet, like we have that joke where we say like diet pop or like anything where it's like they don't actually give you like the especially good stuff. We see it a lot in the industry or marketers in general. They'll throw something out there, but you're like, okay, none of this was actually what I needed or particularly helpful. So we try to give away the good stuff too, with the idea that look, if we do give you the good stuff and you do see some success with it eventually, you'll hit a point where if you're running the business, you don't want to be spending your time marketing too, right? I mean, it's not that you can't do it, it's that your time isn't best spent there. You can be in a different part of the business and growing it more efficiently. So when you hit that point, our name's in your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
So since you guys build websites too, what are the core pages, areas that if you're starting out in a lawn care world, or maybe you're in year 1, year 2, and you're still making improvements, I mean, what are the core pieces of a successful website?
I want to start off with the one that people always leave off. And every website I go to, that's like that someone built it themselves. First of all, they leave off like where they service. Like they don't have their service area anywhere on the site. They just have like their phone number, which might have like the local area code, but phone numbers these days, like everybody moves. Everybody I mean, I still have an Iowa area code, and Evergrow still has a Kansas City area code, even though I'm in Minneapolis and Cody's in Iowa. So I would say the biggest thing, like if you got your website already and you built it yourself, you're missing your service areas page. A page that literally just has like an outline on a map of where your service areas are, or like calling out all the different suburbs and cities and towns you serve. You can make an outline of a map on Google Maps, maps.google.com, and then go to like what your saved place is, and then create map. And then you can embed it using like just embed it onto the site, and it's that easy. And then call out the actual areas you service, and then combine it with MSA.
Thank you.
But yeah, but some of the biggest things besides that are your service page, which everybody always has, but then also list your individual services out too in their own pages. So if you do lawn care and you do the gambit of lawn care, like you do mowing and fertilization, aeration, weed control, pest control, things like that, list those services out in separate pages, but don't get like too granular. So like we always say, we always follow the search traffic. So if the search traffic doesn't warrant a new page, then we probably won't build the new page. But if you're not at the level of building new or building like or looking at your search traffic, then we always say I always say lump your lawn care services together in a lawn care services page. So put aeration in there, put weed control, put fertilization, put mowing in there. If you only do lawn care and fertilization, for instance, then do a lawn care page and a lawn maintenance page. Maintenance for mowing and trimming and things like that, and then lawn care for fertilization, weed control, things like that. If you do lawn pest control, you get rid of like sod webworms and armyworms and things like that, then have your own lawn pest control page. But then segment these into like, if you do landscaping, for instance, maybe have lawn care, have landscaping, have hardscapes, have snow removal, and like put them in different categories as their own pages, because those are what's going to rank. Not when people look for different things, they might look for a lawn care company, in which case they might be directed to your homepage, or they might be looking for landscaping services near me. Well, then at that point, what the page that's going to rank is going to be your landscaping services page. And if you don't have a page for that, then your only shot at ranking is in the Google business profile versus the organic results below the map pack. So making sure to have those pages that are based on what people are actually searching. And shocker, people aren't actually searching for lawn fertilization as much as you think. They're searching for lawn care when they mean lawn fertilization. So
yeah, I mean, we could hand out the top categories too, if that's just helpful for people, because there's definitely a big difference between the industry terminology where guys are like, well, I want to promote this. It's like, well, just because you want to promote it doesn't mean that that's what people are looking for.
Right.
What people are looking for, is pretty straightforward. And if I was going to tell people the categories, it's going to be like lawn care, landscaping, and then design is it's worth splitting out, because people who are looking specifically for design versus install, that's worth breaking out too. You've got tree removal, stump removal, those are worth splitting out too, because people look at those separately. There's enough volume to warrant that. Snow removal, holiday lighting installation, right, that it pops off at a certain time and then dies pretty quick, but that's also worth giving its own separate attention to. And those are the big ones I can think of. There's probably a few that I'm forgetting.
Yeah, we usually separate, like we put hardscapes in its own category, but like nobody actually searches for hardscapes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that, people will look into landscaping, or they're looking like for specific hardscape services, like outdoor kitchens or like decks or something like and if you want to get crazy and build out all those, great. I always recommend connecting your site with or using Google Ads, using the keyword planner. It's a free tool in Google Ads, and that'll give you ideas on what people are searching for in your area. So kind of how we do our keyword research.
Sitting here thinking all the things I've done wrong.
I mean, our standard website build, it has 11 pages. So the first 5 is your home, your services, service areas, about us, and contact us. Those are 5 core pages. And then we have 4 sub-service pages that go underneath the service page. So whatever those might be.
Let me ask you this question, since we've talked about this before with, working together with MSA and the contact page. How important is the contact page to Google?
To Google itself?
Yeah.
I don't think it's important at all.
Yeah, it's not really a ranking thing. It's more of a logistical tracking thing.
We call it a UX thing too, a user experience thing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, people expect a contact page. If you don't give them one, then now they got to find the contact form.
Because I was told by an MSA customer, we were talking about his website, and he said, "Well, my website guy said I've got to have this contact page here. I've got to have it there." And he said it helps with the ranking and such. And
Liar.
I didn't that didn't click with me.
Yeah, there's a school of thought with that. But I mean, for us, it's just a tracking thing, right? Because the way we recommend doing it too, and it's a combination of it's good experience, good user experience, and then also it's just easier to track for your marketing efforts is, when they complete a form submission on your contact page, they go to what's called the thank you page. So the URL changes, right? They submit, it reloads a new page, and then that page says like thank you in the URL.
Yep.
And the only way that you can access it is by completing the form, so that anytime somebody views that page, there's a successful form completion. Now on the contact page too, in addition to that, we'll have additional ways to message. If you want to just click to email, we can do that, or click to call, because most likely more than half of your visitors are going to be on their phones, right? So they might just want to, hey, I don't want to fill out a form, I just want to call you right now. Make that option too. Click call right there you go. Now for us, we track all of those things because we want to know anytime someone's contacting you, not only that they did it, but how they did it too. So we make sure to do all those things. But it's a good idea, if you're setting up yourself, make sure those options are available. And if you change it, know what you're doing, know that you're doing it on purpose. For example, we've seen a guy who was just didn't want more calls, right? Like business wasn't set up. I think this is like the kind of the premium solo guys, where they charge a high ticket, but it's a very small team, if not just themselves.
All hardscaping.
Mm-hmm. So for him, it was like, look, I don't need more calls. I need better calls if I have them, but mostly, since I'm doing this myself, I want to be able to reference these later. So just make people fill out a form, and then I'll address it when I have the time. So it cut down on leads, but it got more of the better leads. So if people hit that point in the business, you can make those decisions. Just make sure you're doing them consciously, not cutting out leads when you'd like to get them.
we're scared to do it because we're like, it's gonna make us look like we're doing worse. Your leads are gonna you're gonna get less leads over time. He's like, that's what I want. So like, all right, but Chris, it's kind of references what I talked to you, like the new page loading on the contact form submission, is because if it doesn't and just a thank you kind of pops up in place of the form, then in order to track that in Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, you've got to track the JavaScript action of that form changing and disappearing basically. And if it's an iframe form, like Jobber's form, for instance, we can't actually track anything because it's an iframe. It doesn't actually live on the site. It's just embedded in there. And so when someone fills out the form, we have no idea if someone actually filled it out in terms of analytics. So it just makes your marketing look bad, and you can't optimize your ads to that specific conversion action because your ads don't know what to look at or what to track. And it's like why Jobber wanted to partner with us, and we're like, we can't, because people are going to want your form on the site, and we don't want to put it on the site because we can't track it.
Yeah. So something I was going to mention earlier, when we were talking about Facebook and Google advertising, we in our like idea list for MSA, we have maybe adding a section to the dashboard that says, "Hey, I'm doing advertising this month," and turn it on, so it could start tracking data from that standpoint of the pop-ups or addresses entered, information captured, and be another reference point for the user to see what's going on is through MSA as well.
Yeah.
And basically like is it Facebook, is it Google, whatever, the channel is, and then a start date and an end date, and then they would have another data point. I think that goes, I can tell you probably a lot of can cleaners could care less about that. But I think the people out there that actually take their business serious and put effort in it, not that everybody should take their business serious, but when it comes to marketing and such,
yeah. Well, marketing is one of those things.
We scratch our head if that would provide value.
Yeah, I think so. Well, if they don't have any other tracking set up, I think it would definitely provide value, because what we usually do is we notate things in Google Analytics, because Google Analytics lets you like add a note into the timeline. And so whenever we do something like make an SEO change or whatever, we always drop a note in there. And then so when we see the traffic spike, we're like, whoa, what happened here? And then so we just like back out our notes. So, but that's something we do as a marketing company.
Right.
So like obviously like we're gonna do that. But for like a client of yours, for instance, if they have an ability to say, like, "Hey, I'm running a marketing campaign here," and then they can see upticks in leads or whatever, then I think that'd be beneficial for them for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Always
I think it's up to people too, where they're going to decide kind of where their source of truth is, because they might, excuse me, they might reference different places and then ultimately decide, like, because usually you can find the information in different places, right? For example, when we work with people who have like very sophisticated call tracking set up in-house, right? And they're like, press 1 for this or press 2 for this, or when this comes in, we have this source track to say it came from here. They might overlap or cross over, and they're like, well, we mostly rely on this. And it's like, okay, well, it's always good to have the options, right? Because if you don't have any options, it's good to just have any. But at the higher levels, then yeah, they're going to start being like, okay, well, do we trust this? Do we trust this? And it's like, well, just pick one, right? Pick one, run with it, and then we can work with that. But
yeah, like
having options is always great.
Our reports include all the different platforms we market on. So like, month over month and year over year, like what's being influenced based on the campaign that's running. But sometimes you don't necessarily want to rely on our reports either, because what we report on is leads, and what you see could be totally different. So we always tell our clients, hey, all we see is leads. If you don't communicate the quality of those leads for months, that's on you. Like, you've got to tell us if these are quality, because our whole business model, our whole value cell is to stay out of your hair. We handle your marketing for you. You don't have to worry about it. But if there's an issue with the quality, like, we need to know this. And it has come up a couple of times where someone says like, hey, we've been getting way too many like residential snow removal leads, and we don't do residential snow removal. Okay, well, let's address the ads and address the landing pages and make sure that we're not getting any of those anymore. But for us, we're like, we got a ton of leads this month, and like, this looks great, and they're like, actually it's not. Like, so that's what we need to know.
So somebody looking for a marketing agency such as yourself, what are like 1 or 2 questions that they should be asking?
It's such a weird thing to think about, because like I think about this a lot. Like, how do you audit an agency? Like, how do I give advice on auditing an agency without being biased?
Right.
Because even when I started out, a lot of people say, well, ask for reviews and ask for things like that. But when I started out, I didn't have any reviews to give, and yet I was still a quality person. So the question becomes, do you want to take a shot on somebody who is newer? Do you trust them? Or do you just want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing and just want to pay the money? And I guess my number one thing I would ask them what like their target KPIs are. I would say what key performance indicator for anyone out there unfamiliar with KPI, but I would say, like, how are you going to track success for me? So a lot of marketing agencies out there are going to focus on things like rank and traffic to the site. None of that matters. And a lot of people are shocked when I say rank doesn't matter, because it doesn't, as long as you're getting the leads for what you're paying for and the leads are quality. I always say, I always ask when people kind of like challenge me on that, and they say, well, everyone, when you get more rank, you get higher rank and you get more leads. Like, shouldn't you care about rank? What if we ranked you to number one and you got 0 leads all year? Would you be happy? And like a lot of them say, well, no. I'm like, well, there you go. So you don't care about rank, you care about leads. And you just think rank is a way to get more leads. And in general, it is. The higher you rank, the more likely you are to get leads. But we're also here to make sure the website's working, things are tracking. And if the website's not working, but you're ranking number one, you're not going to get any leads. So if leads are important for your business, make sure that you're going to be able to track that company against how many leads they're providing you versus what you're paying them. And the other thing too would be to see if you're locked into a contract.
So I was going to since you mentioned contract, I was going to say, what's a red flag in your opinion? What would be a red flag that
guarantees?
I'm sorry.
Guarantees. If they guarantee anything, yeah, it's a red flag. You can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee rank. You can't guarantee the number of leads unless you're prepared to lose. And it's just, yeah, that's probably the biggest red flag. Also, saying yes to everything. I think if you say like you want to do this, this, and this, and they're like, yep, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that, and that's a red flag to me, because it just sounds like they want your money. Yep. Whereas we tell people no all the time. Like, I want to do Facebook ads. No, you're gonna max out your Google ad spend with us before you move over to Facebook. It just or like, I've had people like, I want you guys to do competitor research. I want you to do all this, and with our just our standard package, and we'll just say no. Like, we've defined what the expectation is here. And if the marketing company never pushes back on you, that's a red flag to me. It just means that I don't think the processes are as defined, and they're just trying to get a client. Cody, do you have any?
I wrote down, just because this comes up pretty often when I'm involved in calls. I mean, Jake knows more about this than me because he's the guy who is having the initial conversations. But when I don't even know how to phrase it. Agencies can't determine what is or isn't good for you without you first telling them what is good for you, right? Because we end up a lot in these conversations where they're like, how'd we do? Well, was it good? Was it bad? How are things looking? And it's like, you tell us, right? I mean, we can tell you everything from our end, but ultimately you have to know your business well enough. So maybe like before you even start looking at a marketing agency, like Jake said earlier, like you got to know these things well enough to warrant going and having somebody help out with this. Because if you just, there's a ton of them out there. If you just go to a marketing agency, hey, I want marketing, like Jake was saying, they'll say, yeah, everybody's going to take your money. Everybody's very happy to do that. But I mean, we're one of the weirdos who will push back and be like, look, we don't want to take your money for 3 months, right? Like, and then have you be unhappy and confused, and then you hate agencies forever because you had a bad experience with this. I mean, one, we want your money for 3 years, not 3 months, right? So that's why we do it that way. But yeah, if you're talking and they're the ones telling you what's good or isn't good for your business when it comes to the actual success, I think that's a red flag. I think you need to come in saying, these are things I'm looking for out of marketing, and kind of the performance I need to see in order for this to be cost effective. Now, of course, we have the conversations too, where we come back and say, can't do it. Right. I mean, either, the business model doesn't work, or you're too ambitious. Granted, we have the flip side too, where they're like, we want leads under $300, and we're like, give us all your money. This is cake. This is the easiest thing we'll ever do. But you have to come at it with that mindset first of knowing what you want out of it instead of letting them decide for you. Otherwise, they'll take all your money.
Yeah. We gotta jump in 2 minutes, but I had a couple points here too. And one thing is if this happens after the engagement. It's after the engagement's already started. If the marketing company is asking you what you should, what you want to promote, or asking you for ideas, red flag. That marketing company should be providing them to you. Now, if you have like feedback, you say, hey, fertilization season's coming up, or not fertilization, aeration season's coming up. Like, is there anything we can do? And they say like for us, if we're just doing Google ads and SEO, we're basically like, no, like we call it out already. If people are searching for it, then that's where the ad spend will go. But if they're like asking you like, hey, what should we do next month? Huge red flag. Like, they're a marketing agency. They should be telling you where the ideas are. And then I had another one, but I lost it.
No worries. Well, guys, we've been on an hour and a half. I appreciate it. I'll put all the information in the show notes. Guys, if you're looking for a marketing company, a solid, truthful, honest, good guys, these are the guys to look for. It's Evergrow Marketing. And Jake and Cody, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. We need to do it again.
Absolutely.
I'm down. Good.
Thanks.
See ya.